This episode of Nerdist News is brought to you by Tor Books, publisher of Fate of the Fallen. Here's why The Mandalorian's Episode 2 twist confirms our fan theory. Hot on the heels of Chapter 1 of The Mandalorian, Disney Plus kept that hype train chugging along as they dropped the second episode this week on Friday. And if the new outing didn't seal the deal to make this appointment TV for you, well then, I don't know what to tell you, it's probably not the show you're looking for. You have bad taste. But for everyone else, what a ride, am I right? That reveal? I mean, come on, look, we all knew it was coming, but look, it was awesome. Now, before we can get into the specifics of all of this, we have to do our due diligence and drop in a spoiler warning here. We're going to be breaking apart and dissecting Chapter 2 of The Mandalorian, so if you haven't had a chance to watch yet, I mean, no big deal. Just freeze this video in Carbonite, then go check it out later. Anyway, come back, please watch. I'm dying. For everyone else who's seen it, please feel free to use this time to like and subscribe because we really appreciate it. All right, great. Are you back? Perfect. First off, folks, can we please talk about how freaking cute this Baby Yoda is? I mean, look, we don't have a name for this character, so I'm going to keep calling it the wee Baby Yoda until we do, because, oh my, I'm just like overcome with how adorable it is. Eat your heart out, Baby Groot. You are nothing compared to the wee Baby Yoda. Nothing. All right, secondly, folks, look, we all figured the wee Baby Yoda was Force sensitive, right? I mean, no one didn't see that coming, but it was still pretty cool nonetheless. So let's break down what it all means. Now, to recap, this mostly silent episode picks up pretty much right where the last one ended. The Mando has the wee Baby Yoda, and they're making their way to his ship, the Razor Crest, when they're jumped by a bunch of Trandoshan bounty hunters. They also have their own tracking fob, and like IG-11, they seem intent on taking out the child, or the asset as we know and love him. While the Mandalorian manages to defeat them, he's injured in the process, which forces him to take a quick siesta to tend to his wounds. During this moment, Baby Yoda somehow manages to climb out of his floating crib and reaches for the Mando, and he gets quickly stuffed back into his basket, only to try it again and get stuffed back into his basket. Just let this baby heal your wounds. Now, for a brief moment, it felt like we might get our first look at Force healing, an ability that hasn't really been explored in the new canon since Disney bought Lucasfilm. Also, if you thought this meant that Baby Yoda's Force abilities were going to be teased out over the course of the season, well, you can definitely shut that theory down, because shortly after the Mandalorian finds his ship stripped for parts by Jawas, which leads to this awesome Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade homage, and potentially an homage to the classic SNES game Super Star Wars. You can read about that on Nerdist.com. He makes a deal with them for his ship parts in exchange for an egg being protected by a mudhorn. And it's during this fight, when the Mando's about to straight up get wrecked by the beast, where Baby Yoda uses his Force abilities to lift the creature into the air and save the Mandalorian's life. While this exertion pretty much knocks out Baby Yoda for the rest of the episode, the intervention is just enough for the Mando to slay the beast with the tiniest knife known to man and come back with the gooeyest treasure this side of... I can't think of anything gooier. Like, seriously, the Jawas just have this, like, the worst brunch imaginable. Hey, gather you and your pals this weekend and reach into a large egg and just slop that yolk, you freaks. Anyway, he gets his ship up and running thanks to the help of Nick Nolte so he can get the hell off of this world. So what does this all confirm? Well, actually, it confirms quite a bit. Not only does it mean that Yoda's species are Force sensitive, but we would argue that they are super strong in the Force to boot. Even Luke Skywalker, with all of his training, could barely move his X-Wing back on Dagobah. However, Baby Yoda, albeit a 50-year-old baby, stopped a charging beast of a similar size with relative ease. Secondly, this also seems to confirm our theory that the client and Dr. Pershing definitely want this baby for his Force abilities. Whether that is to extract midichlorians from the baby to inject into others, or to use this baby's DNA to create some sort of new army of Force-sensitive troopers, well, that remains to be seen exactly what they're gonna do, but they definitely want this baby alive and well. Also, considering how the Trandoshan bounty hunters were using their own tracking fob and were looking to straight up murk the wee Baby Yoda, well, that 100% confirms that there are other factions at play here. And we've brought this detail up before, but with Baby Yoda being 50 years old baby, that would place his birth a few years before the events of The Phantom Menace, i.e. during the height of the Republic. As we saw in the Clone Wars Season 2 episode Children of the Force, the Jedi Council like to keep tabs on Force-sensitive children, so it's kind of hard to believe they wouldn't have known about this powerful Baby Yoda being born, and they probably would have kept an open file on him, or maybe even had him protected in a Jedi nursery of some sort. Of course, that leaves us with this question: the aliens at the compound that were guarding Baby Yoda, were they bad dudes trying to hold him for ransom? ransom, or some other nefarious purpose, or were they just heavily armed babysitters trying to keep him safe? Now, the more and more this story starts to unravel, it appears they actually might have been good guys. So murdering them might have been a big old oopsie-doopsie on the Mando's part. That guy's KDR is through the roof. He is like, I don't know, 1 kill away from a kill streak reward. He's going to call it an orbital strike before you know it. Now, in the end, it looks like we are 100% going to get a lone wolf and cub story here with the Mandalorian. A single warrior with a baby by his side as they're forced to take on jobs they need to survive. And honestly, if any of us weren't on board before this, well, we sure as hell are now. And we can't wait to see what happens when the next episode of The Mandalorian drops next Friday. But what do you folks think? Are you glad they revealed Baby Yoda's Force powers now instead of just dragging it out over the course of the season? And where do you think Baby Yoda came from? Also, do you think we'll see others of his kind by the series end? Like a bunch of old babies? Like a big old pile of wee Baby Yodes? Let's discuss. Thanks again to Tor Books for sponsoring today's episode. Fate of the Fallen, the brand new adventure from New York Times bestselling writer Kel Cade, is here. Saving the world isn't as easy or exciting as it sounds in the stories, but when Matthias discovers his destiny to save the world, he dives in head first. Of course, as the going gets rough, folks start to believe surrendering to the forces of evil is their best chance for survival, which isn't how the prophecy goes. As his list of allies grows thin, Matthias and his friends find themselves staring death in the face. They must decide how to become the heroes they were destined to be, or, failing that, how to survive. Read Fate of the Fallen, available now wherever books are sold. For more info, follow @Tor Books. That's @TOR Books.